All right, welcome back. We continue right here. It's the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call, powered by FanDuel Sportsbook. Bob Pompeani, Andrew Fillipponi with you. Let's go back. Ken has reconnected. Ken, I hope your finances are fine.
Well, what I'd like to know is, if Ben don't come back healthy and able to throw the ball, do you think they're going to go to a free agents or draft pick?
I think they have to do that in advance of knowing the outcome. I really do, because I don't think they're going to know the outcome, Ken, until later in the year.
Good question. I think it's a very good question, Ken. Because now it all ties back in. His money problem is the same as the Steelers right now, Bob, because one of the things that I did some research, had to call some people on. I do that sometimes. I don't know all the answers. I got to ask.
I know that.
If I don't know the answer, I'm going to go find it.
Right.
If Ben retires, let's say in March or in May he tries to come back and it's not working for him, it's still $20+ million in dead money against the salary cap. So I put that out there too, because anybody, maybe you're at work, water cooler talk, if Ben retires, can the Steelers get Tom Brady? No, because that dead money is going to, for next year, is going to kill him.
Just like Antonio Brown stayed on the hook for this year.
Exactly. So they've got to find, I believe this, I've seen other people write it, I think the popular opinion's the right one. They got to find a veteran backup quarterback. It's not going to be an expensive one. It's going to be, I've heard Blake Bortles' name come up a little bit. Shares an agent with Ben. He's only making $1 million. High-end talent. Obviously, he's had some awful games.
Right. But he had some of his best games against the Steelers.
Yes, he has. He likes Heinz Field. But that is the caliber of quarterback you need to investigate and look at.
Well, there are higher priced ones. Teddy Bridgewater is one of them. And
he wants to be a starter.
I know he does. Everyone wants to be a starter, though, and some of these guys are going to have to come to the realization there are many starting jobs, perhaps. And that leads us to some of the older guys we've talked about.
Yeah.
Because, people say, Phil Rivers, what's he going to do? Oh, well, let's talk about Eli Manning. To me, none of those guys would be interested in serving as a backup.
To Ben? Absolutely not.
To anyone.
Well, that's even Andy Dalton.
They want to start. They don't want to go.
Andy Dalton and Marcus Mariota are going to take deals where they're either going to be the most expensive backups with incentives to make starter money. And so that's not going to be on the table here. I would be interested in this. When Flacco gets cut from Denver, what kind of deal is he going to be looking for? And would he be okay with being somebody's backup for $3 or $4 million?
He might be. But I think the Brady stuff, it all starts there with me, and I'm going to be very interested to see where it goes. All right, let's go to Jason in Mount Lebanon. What's up, Jason? How are you?
Hey, Bob. How are you?
What's going on?
Nothing much. You guys were talking about Tomlin and
that. As far as, backup quarterbacks, the Steelers are going to be in a position that they have to do one, getting back to that conversation. They have to, just because they won't know. Mason Rudolph, to me, is a guy who I think shows me, and I was more encouraged, I don't know about you, about the Jets game than any other game he played. He did well in the 3-game win streak here at home, and I still think he's young enough where he can turn into something good. I think Mike Tomlin pretty much said they're comfortable with him. That doesn't mean you can't challenge him.
I hear you. I think he needs to change his scenery. I think if he's going to excel.
Already?
Well, I mean, for his long-term future, if he's going to excel in this league, I think he needs a new team. And I say that because he's been benched for Devlin Hodges, right? I mean, they did not go right back to him after the Cincinnati game. I think that showed a lack of faith and belief in him. They did not even make him the backup quarterback last year, Bob. It was Josh Dobbs, so he got no reps. I don't think it's Mason Rudolph's team.
We're out of time. Our thanks to Andrew Fillipponi. Thanks. We'll see you again on Thursday. I'm Bob Pompeani. See you on KDKA.